Good morning, friends. Just first of all, I have hiccups, just as I'm about to start. I'm trying to get them to go away, but hiccups. Everybody has a solution. I could drink upside down and all kinds of stuff, but you'll have to put up with it if I hiccup in the middle. All right, so today, well, first of all, welcome or welcome back if you're a regular here. I am Shelley Pryor. I'm a watercolor artist in Ontario, Canada, and every week I do a little demonstration in watercolor, how to do all kinds of things. So welcome, and I see that, Margot, that's a good suggestion. One of these weeks I will do some lettering in watercolor, because I think lettering in watercolor is wonderful, and especially it's a great segue that gets into sketchbooking and things like that. So that's a really good one. Okay, so today what I want to talk about is everybody's favorite subject, how to fix mistakes. Well, let me just start off by saying fixing mistakes is often overrated, and the best way to avoid mistakes is to avoid them in the first place. Like, that's the best fix, is just not make them in the first place. Well, that's great in a perfect world, but as you know, that isn't reality. And sometimes you have things happen. You reach across to pick up a color paint for something, for a wash, and drip right in a spot that you didn't want it, or something like that. And it might be something that you've worked on for a couple of hours. It's happened to me many times. And so, you need to know how to fix those types of things. But let me just sort of underscore that fixing your watercolor will just end up in an overworked, muddy looking mess. And to have a fresh watercolor is far more appealing, shall we say, than a watercolor that's overworked. And you've all seen them, right? You've all seen watercolors that have been worked, and you can tell. Right? They've lost that freshness. And if you get to the point where you've lost that freshness, or your colors are muddy, sorry, I don't have a fix for that except to get a fresh piece of paper and start again. But in the instance that I was referring to, where you just sort of drop some paint or something in a spot, or it was the wrong color or something like that, you want to know how to fix that. So my experience is that whenever I've tried to fix something by scrubbing or something like that, that my paper gets chewed up and it's no longer nice to paint on, and it paints horribly after that. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So let's move on down to my demo mode here. And I just found some, washes that I had done that I was using for a demonstration at one point. And let's just take some paint here, and I'll take one of these washes, and let's say I want to put I'm reaching into my cobalt blue, and oops, some of it dropped into my wash. I'm going to let that dry, because maybe I made that mistake and I didn't spot it right away. If you do spot it right away, of course, the first thing to do is to blot gently, right? Now that did not come off, that just kind of pushed it in. So, it was not a great solution. But blotting, if it's a drop of water, okay? If you've got water on your paper, so let's say you've got a drop of water, you're reaching over to rinse your brush or something, and some water dropped into your smooth wash of sky or something like that. Well, yeah, if you've just done it and you've done it, then just blot that off quickly and you're fine. But the best solution for water that has been dropped on your paper, and this is the hard part, is to just do nothing. If you spot this water and you don't know how long it's been there, the best thing to do is just to leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't try to, drink it up with your brush. Don't do anything. Just leave your paper flat. Let this droplet evaporate. And the reason I'm saying that is because when it first goes on, it softens up the paint, right? So the paint gets softened up, and then now this droplet is not just water. It is water and paint. So if you blot it off, what happens is you're going to take some of the color off in that spot, and it's going to look kind of like a bald spot. So the solution is to just leave it where it is. The paint will soften, but as the water evaporates, the paint goes right back where it came from. So you won't see it. So that is the best solution for dropping water on your painting, and not try to blot it off. The only time I would blot off water is if I did it immediately. If I knew I just did it and I saw it, I could blot it off then. But that's the only time. Any other time, if you don't know how long it's been there, just leave it. Now, these little blobs, oops, look at that. There's another little oops. I put my finger in it and I smeared it, and that's the kind of stuff that can happen, right? Maybe you're wearing sleeves or something like that, and your cuff got into your watercolor palette or something like that, and then you reach over to paint something, and your cuff, has transferred some paint into an area where you didn't want it. These are all things that happen. There's not one watercolor artist that I know that never happens to. Now, let me just point out what's going on here. All right, now I didn't do this. This was just a demo I had done for something else, so I didn't do this specifically for today, but this demonstrates it pretty well. This was illustrating how your attempts to cover up with white paint. Like, a lot of people will grab something like this and they will try to fix a mistake using this. This is a great product. It is fantastic for adding little accents. Look at these nice little stars up here. Perfect for that. Little white accents on things. That's great. That's what this is intended for. This is not whiteout. Let me emphasize that. This is not whiteout, and it will not fix your mistakes. When you add white is actually a very cool color, and it's also very opaque, and it will make your paints look very muddy. So if I tried to cover this up, for example, with white paint, it would be just awful. it would absolutely scream at you in terms of jumping off the page saying, hey, look at me, I'm a big mistake. So I would not try to avoid your temptations, your go-to instincts that tell you to cover it up with white. That's a great solution if you're working in acrylic or something like that. If you need to lighten up something in an oil, you might, maybe not add white, because whites will make those colors muddy too, but it will at least cover it up. And that's the thing I'm trying to underscore here is that you don't want to cover up mistakes. You want to remove them, right? So instead of trying to cover up mistakes with more paint, more white paint, more color, or whatever, instead of trying to cover it up, let's get it off. So that's what I want to show you today, is how to get it off. And let's go down here. Now, let's assume here that, I was supposed to leave something here. Well, there's a couple of ways of going about this. If it's a nice clear shape, such as, say it's a sailboat or a house or something like that, I could use tape, or I could use something like that, and I can put tape on here. And so a sailboat might be this little triangle shape. Now, I don't know how long this paint has been on here. It's probably been on here at least a year. But we'll see if we can get this off. So let's do a sail here, like that's the shape of a sail. And if I use a scrubby brush, I don't know if I have a scrubby brush right here, but you know, if I use a brush and try to scrub this off, probably not too much is going to happen. It'll be a pink sail, it won't be a white sail. So here's what I would suggest to you. I'm going to introduce you to my special guest, the love of my life, the man of my dreams, Mr. Clean. So this one's the original. This is very, very important, is to always use original Mr. Clean. Don't get the one with the scrubby pad on one side, or the one with soap or something in it. Like, just get the original one. It's got nothing in it. So what I do, and it, you know, this one's not open, but I can open this up and show it to you. It's basically just a big block, sponge, right? It's a big sponge like this. So I cut this up into smaller pieces like this. So, you know, I just use a little utility knife and I cut them up into small bits. Or you can tear it, you know, like maybe I want a smaller piece. I could just rip this in half. It's pretty easy to tear. So I'm going to get this damp, putting it in clean water, and I'm just going to squeeze the excess out. And if I pull in one direction here, see, I've pulled off some color. Now I don't want to use that same color and push it back into the paper, so I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to pull again. I can even rinse it out if I need to, but I'm going to keep pulling in one direction. Why one direction? Well, have you ever patted a dog in two directions? Just go one way with the grain, and I have to be careful my tape doesn't roll up there. But, you know, I don't want to go in circles and rub and, you know, really scrub. I'm still being gentle with this, but you can see that it is doing a great job of lifting. I don't think this tape is down very tight, but it is doing a good job of lifting this. And I have to keep turning it and finding a clean edge. And once this one's kind of soiled and scrunched up and not working very well, I just toss it out. Grab the other half. So that's why I break it up into small pieces. I'm going to go this way just because I'm rolling up this tape. I should have gone this way in the first place. So I pulled up some color, and if I just continue to turn and wipe, I can get this back pretty much to white paper. I think that's bleeding underneath, but let me see. No, I'm okay. I'm all right. So but what this is doing to the paper, all right, so this is roughing up the paper a little bit. It's a very, very fine abrasive that we are actually applying to the paper. Now, as I do this, as I'm working on this, I'm going to explain to you that about paper, because it's very important to understand what's happening as I'm doing this. Well, paper's made of cotton, 100% cotton, or this good quality paper is anyway, and its fibers are basically, you know, they make a pulp, and then they lift it out of the solution and leave it to dry, right? Now, if they just sold paper that way, that would be no different than painting on your paper towel, because it would, you know, be really, really soft. It would be really absorbent. It's cotton, right? You know, you can imagine what it would be like to paint on a pair of white jeans, or any jeans for that matter. You know, the paint just soaks straight in. And so to paint on this again, first of all, I'm roughing it up with the rubbing, because paper, once it gets wet, will sort of pill a little bit. I'm going to start blotting this. And you know, I could keep at this forever. I'm not, you know, I could really work at that, and I could get that back to pure white. I'm not going to worry about getting back to pure white right now, but what I'm going to do is pull this off, and you'll see that I have removed that paint, even though it's like a year old, and the older your paint is, the harder it is to remove, by the way. But you know, even though I have painted that a long time ago, I was still able to remove the color. I didn't work at it long enough to pull all of it off, but you got the gist of it. So now for me to show you what this is like to paint in afterwards, I'm going to do another strip here, just without any tape or anything. I'm just going to keep lifting some color. Let me grab another one. So you get a lot of bang for your buck if you break it up into smaller pieces and work with it that way, because there's more sides to it, right? Certain colors will come up more easily than others. This is obviously, well, this is a permanent rose, I'm sure, because it's highly staining, permanent color, but okay. So I'll get some of this lighter, and then I will try and paint back into it, because often what happens, like if you're just lifting color and you can leave it alone, that's great. So say your sailboat's done, right? So you've got a sailboat and you just need that white little mark there. Well, that's fine. Problem is, what happens if you have to replace the color? Like up here, when we have this, like we had a drop of paint. I'll get to that too. But let's try and remove this right now, actually. So I'm going to try to remove that blue that was there. But guess what? It's not removing just blue, is it? It's removing the wash as well. And I actually did this quite successfully in a wash, which was very surprising. So I'm going to now, if you get a ring around it, just wet it, go lighter with it, and blot immediately, and that takes up that paint that has gathered around that wet spot. So now I have kind of that bald spot that I was talking about. I've got a spot down here as well. Both are really wet. Now I wouldn't try to paint into this while it was wet. So what I'm going to do is just give me a second, and I'm going to put myself on mute for a sec, and I will I'll just quickly dry this so that I can paint back into it. Yes, Bev, I gotta learn how to fix hiccups. Yeah, I started off with hiccups if you've just joined late. Okay. Well, good morning. Everybody's from all over the place again today. So happy to see you. And I'm going to mute for just 1 minute while I dry these two little spots. Okay, so a few minutes ago I was talking about paper, and that paper being made of cotton gets roughed up fairly easy. Like I can actually feel and roll off the little pills of rolled up cotton paper here. And that part of the paper where I scrubbed feels a little bit rough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back of my nail, or back of my nail is better because it doesn't really have anything that'll come off. And I'm going to, if I rubbed in this direction, I'm going to rub it back in the other direction. So if I scrubbed in this direction, I'm rubbing back in that direction so that I'm sort of putting down the hairs of the dog kind of thing, patting back and smoothing down those fibers. Okay, that feels better. But of course, once it gets wet again, those will just lift right up, right? Same here. I've got, that's not quite dry yet. I have to leave that one a little bit. But this one here, okay, so imagine I've made a mess in here, and I dropped some paint and I've just scrubbed it off. Okay, so that's where I'm at here. So I've got something there and I need to fix it, and I'm going to paint on this. Now, if I paint on this, what's going to happen, let me grab a brush. You'll see that when I paint on this, let's go with a blue, because I'm not painting anything in particular, but if I go with blue and I try to do a straight line, it's going to sort of start, the edges are going to go awful. You'll see, I'll see how close I can get with this without it going out of focus, but can you see what's happening to the edges of this? There's no way I could try to make that straight, but it's still going to bleed into that roughed up surface, right? And I can't get a smooth line. And I can try to fix it, and it's fine on the dry stuff, but as soon as it hits the roughed up spot, I'm out of control, because it starts to crawl out and seep into those fibers, and I'm not getting a good line. So it's kind of awful to paint into. So what's the solution? Well, I started using something called multi-sizing. This is a product by Holbein. I don't represent Holbein. I don't represent any companies. So, this is a multi-sizing which replaces the coating, that starch coating that they put on watercolor paper, the cotton, which is put there when it's made because it controls how absorbent the paper is, because without it, it is just like painting on paper towel. I'd have about as much control as this, right? So it would be just about like painting on this. So without sizing, you have no control. And that's what's happening here on these edges, is that now that sizing's all gone, and I've got raw paper. So I need to replace the sizing. And this is the part that everybody forgets. I've seen a lot of people scrub with magic eraser, and then they try to paint back into it and they hate it. So what I found is that this will really kind of seal that paper again. And I'll just, I'll put a little on my palette. That's what I'll do. Just drop a little in there. And it's just like water. Here, I'll put a little here, and it looks just like water, right? So I can take this multi-sizing, and I can brush it on here. And you're going to ask me where I got this, and I was not able to get this in my local art store. So I did order this online, by the way. So I'm painting it on. And of course, remember what I said, it's that as soon as it gets wet again, it's going to raise up the fibers. So what I will often do is let this dry, and I will push down those fibers again. And worst case scenario, I'll just take something like an ultra fine sandpaper. I'm just looking to see if I have one here because I thought I had one handy, but I don't think I have it at my disposal at the moment. But you know, they have these little white discs that are very, very, very fine, super fine sandpaper, and you can actually kind of sand it a little bit, just very, very lightly, and that will take any of those little burrs off. But then I would apply another coat of the sizing. So I'm going to dry this, and then I'll show you the difference of painting on this versus this. All right, hold on for 1 second. I'm going to mute while I dry. Okay, we can't even see it. Sorry, the camera's struggling here for a second. You can't see it, but I can feel those fibers have raised up again. So I'm going to press them down again. Because when I paint, I don't want my brush to hit all those little pills, right? All the little grain that has come up. So I'm pressing this down again. And that's pretty good. And this one up here as well. Okay, and this one's pretty good. This one I didn't scrub at as much, so I'm going to try this one first of all. I think this was like a dioxazine. I'm going to have to try and match this color if I was trying to do this, but I don't have dioxazine on my palette at the moment, so I'm going to mix something close and see if I can get this patched up. Let's try this color, see if I'm close. Not too bad. And now when I paint in here, I can do this pretty lightly. I'm working gingerly here. Probably needed another coat of sizing, but we'll see what I can do here. And I'm just going around the outside edges with clean water just to sort of blend it into that wash. And I'll probably have to do this, I might have to do this a second time, but you can see I can get that pretty close to what I had, and basically got rid of that big blue blob in the sky, or whatever this is. Maybe it was a flower petal or something. You know, there's always the other solutions to this too. You know, rather than trying to make it just like it was when it was original. There's always, you know, adapt your painting. If this was a petal, I'd put a bug on it, you know, or something like that. Let me try and get this a little bit more color here. I don't think I have enough color in this paint, because I know it's going to dry lighter. And we'll see how that dries. We'll see if I can get that cleaned up there, but let's go with this one down here now. And let's try this blue once again, and we'll try and do a blue line through here. I was going to put a second coat on this, but just for time's sake I won't. But you can see that when I paint on this now, I don't have the roughness when I hit that spot. Like, look, it's clean as the regular watercolor. You know, the part without the multi-sizing on it. So I can come in and go over that line, and it comes out clean. So that's a big step, a big thing to know. As this dries, now this one's coming up here, it's starting to dry, and you can see that it's starting to fill in and look a little bit better as it dries. But the other thing too is if you drop some water on something that's fairly fresh, like let's say I paint some blue here. And I drop, you know, I drop some water in it, or let's say I've just missed a little spot. Okay, so let's say I've missed a little spot. So I've got a little spot here that I missed, and I want to fill that in. This is something I see quite often. People will want to fill in a spot that they had forgotten or missed, and their go-to seems to be to like add a whole big patch on it. But the solution is really just don't try to fix a big area, just fix the little tiny spot. More sky paintings? Sure. I love doing sky paintings. Yeah, so if you're not reading the chat, I'm getting a few suggestions for upcoming demos. One is doing lettering, one is doing skies. And yes, I do take notes of all of these suggestions that you guys make. So, I mean, if you're seeing the replay of this or something, or if you're watching and not seeing the comments, just put it in the comments section below the video. I'm going to dry this real quick, and I'll show you how I would fix this, this spot. Okay, that was a real quick dry, but so I'm going to come in again with my cobalt blue, and here's the problem. If I come up and I overlap that line, what I end up with is an extra dark line where the two overlap, right? So I see this all the time. People try to paint over something. You know, let's say you're trying to fill in these spots, and where the paint is now 2 layers thick, it makes a dark line. So when you try to fix something, don't try to do a big patch here. Don't just try to paint over it like that. Just paint inside the lines if at all possible. You know, you need a brush in good shape to do it, but you know, come inside the lines if possible. And it might show. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It might show, especially if it's a wash. But what I'll do is I'll make the little patch, and now everything's, even though it's not smooth, it's the same value. It's the same value. So I'm going to leave this to dry. Well, actually, I won't leave it to dry. I'll speed it up and I'll dry it for you. So just one sec. Okay, so you can tell that it's a patch. You can tell, right? But because I've made it all the same value now, what I can do is I can simply take my brush and re-wet the area. I'm going to use a bigger brush for this. Let me switch over here. And I'm just going to re-wet the whole area. Might have to add a little bit of color as well, because your brush will pick up some of the color from the paint. And now I can smooth that right out. So if you've missed a spot and then you have to do a patch, instead of trying to just add another layer on top, fill the hole with the same color so it's all the same value, and then re-wet the whole wash to get it smooth. All right, so even the part here where I had the double dark line, even that has smoothed out. So little things that you can do to, clean up or, make your paintings a little bit fresher looking, even if they're not. And you can see that this is drying not too bad. Now it was just a mix to try and get the color right, but it looks a lot better than this blue did. That was as dark as that, and it was a pretty big blob. And if I zoom out, you're really going to see that not blended in at all, or you'll see it pretty uniform. And I can do the same sort of thing that I just did here with the blue, and I can go over and smooth this out. And see, that will smooth out that little spot as well. And as I said, I could have done two applications of the multi-sizing, and that would have made it even cleaner looking. But you get the idea. First of all, if you need to make a drastic repair, then Magic Eraser is a great way to do it. Just don't forget how much it's going to rough up your paper. Smooth it out and apply. I would put like maybe two, even 3 coats of the multi-sizing on. I know it has, I've looked up some instructions here. It says, apply with a broad brush and dry well. That's it. That's all it says. So, I was experimenting with it, and I found that, really 2 or 3 coats, but also making sure that the fibers of the paper are smoothed down again, because if you don't smooth down those fibers, you're going to have bumps. So that's adding a different texture to your paper. So it is important to, do all 3 of those things. So get rid of the mistake instead of covering it up. If you get rid of it, that means you've probably scrubbed your paper. If you've scrubbed your paper, it gets rough, you want to smooth it again, apply the sizing so that the paper isn't overly absorbent again, and put a couple of coats on. And if you do a patch and it still shows, just brush over it again, and it melts all that paint together again. And it, it's like knitting. It's like fixing a mistake in knitting, right? There's ways of doing it, and it just, all those colors just sort of blend together. So if I have things to correct like that, that's kind of my go-to fix on that sort of thing. And a ranunculus, oh my goodness, yes. You're welcome. All right, more sky paintings. Oh, thank you very much. I'm getting some comments that people enjoy my painting, my demos. Thank you so much. Of course, if you enjoy them, bet you have a friend that might. you can let them know. That would help me out. So you can share or you can subscribe or whatever. Trying to think if there's any other fixes that I would do. Maybe you have some hard edges that that you want to get rid of. That can happen quite often. The magic eraser is a great way to sort of correct that. You can see when I used the magic eraser without the tape that I got a much softer edge. And if I took a hard edge like this, or let's take one of these hard edges here. If I took my magic eraser, it's obviously too old. This paint's been on here who knows how long. And if I tried to just take my wet brush and make it run, it won't. You know, once it's dry, it's dry. So then you have to pull out the big guns and get the magic eraser out, and you might have to start softening this way. Now as this gets wet, look what's happening at the top. Do you see that dark? Oops, I forgot to bring that. It's a little wet. But you get this sort of dark ring at the top. Blot that off before it dries. But if you have a hard edge and it's like, oh, that needs to be a soft edge, I messed it up. You can get it back with a little work. Just remember though that the best solution for mistakes is not to make them in the first place. And sometimes if a painting gets really overworked, or if you're doing too much fixing, it is time to hang it up, try again. Start with a fresh one, because a fresh painting, it trumps perfection every time. And while I'm saying that too, I really want to emphasize that, wow, you know, people fix way too much stuff in their paintings. Like, often what happens in the most beautiful watercolors is that mistakes are in there. They're in there and they're left alone, because that an experienced artist will know that leaving imperfections only adds to the charm of a painting in many cases. So to fix everything isn't required. Even in my highly realistic paintings that I do, I don't always go back to fix everything. I often will leave imperfections, and I'm finding that the more I do, the more I like the painting. Paintings that I've worked at and tried to fix really just don't have the same appeal to me as paintings that look fresh and deliberate, spontaneous. That if it doesn't have that look to it, you've lost the whole concept of the watercolor. So although I'm showing you fixes, don't fix everything. Just, only if it's a crisis. If you're trying to do, say, a leaf shape or something like that, and you get the shape wrong, oops, you went too long there, leave it alone. Like, you don't have to fix that. It can easily, quite happily be part of the imperfection of the water, and let the paint flow and do its thing, and let the imperfections be in there. Don't be afraid to leave little specks of white in it. Those don't all have to be fixed. But sometimes you miss a white or a highlight in the eye. That kind of thing, sure. Go ahead and grab this stuff. If you missed a highlight in a catch light in somebody's eye or something, get some white or white gouache or something like that, and by all means do that. But I can't get the lid off this. Oh, well, I'll show that another day. But, you know, that white paint, you just simply dot it on just like this, you know. So, I think that's about it. I can't really think of too many other major mistakes that, you know, if it's any more major than that, like spilling your whole cup of coffee on your painting or something like that. Yeah, I don't have a fix for that. And I have, by the way, I have done that to a painting, spilled a whole coffee on it. So drink and paint at your own risk. I pretty much always have a travel mug. It also keeps my coffee hot because I'm always drinking coffee, cold coffee these days. All right, so let's wrap this one up. And if you have any suggestions for repairing your watercolors or fixing things, by all means, just add it to the comments after we're done here, and share your knowledge with other artists as well. So we'll wrap it up. Have a great week, everybody. See you next time, and thank you very much for the suggestions. Bye for now.